Hello, my dear friend, and welcome to the Spiritually Engineered Podcast, where we take a deep dive into the human experience from a spiritual perspective. Come on in, and I invite you to stay. All right, so for today's episode, I'm going to do things a bit different for the monthly meditation segment. For this episode, I'm not going to talk about the excerpt from this month, but rather let's just go over, and I want to talk about the theme itself and what's been coming up. And so, currently we are in the month of July 2026. We're about halfway in the year of 2026, and we're about less than 2 months away before we shift from the energy of the spirit of inspiration and moving into a new vibration of energy, and that's called light of power. And I'll talk more about that in a future episode, but for now, just setting that forth to give you a bigger picture of what's to come from a spiritual forecast perspective. And so July, the current month, the theme for this month is peace. Peace. P-E-A-C-E. Peace. You know, when I think about peace, for me, you know, it's like being at ease. And an experience that I can relate to right now would be, currently I'm in Iowa for a little summer camp, and here on a retreat to basically work on myself and connect with like-minded folks here, my soul family. And when I'm here in at least where I'm at right now, there's a powerful energy here that's like makes us a powerful reservoir that, you know, I feel that sense of peace. You know, and as much as it's great that I feel that, you know, and I even think about, okay, what are some places where I feel peace, at ease? You know, tune into that for a moment for yourself. Like, what are some places, or perhaps there are people that you're around that helps you to feel peace within. And as much as all that is important, right? Thinking about those places, etc. For me, when it comes to the spiritual, living spiritually and making it practical for myself, that is to say, like living in balance, making it practical. For me, it's it's learning to, when it comes to the ebbs and flows of life, when the challenges, when a little bit of turmoil comes up, not necessarily from the environment, although the environment stimulates, and it's the turmoil from within, inside me, that is important. And I think peace, I believe peace is a state of being. And I think learning to be in that place is a practice. And I say that because you and I were spiritually sensitive, and so is our neighbor. We can pick up thoughts and feelings from the environment and take on things so easily that, for me, it's so easy to identify and think, oh, it's my thought. Well, what's that about? Without asking the question, okay, who is that? What is that? And instead, I easily just take on like, oh, I feel this way. Okay, so then even if it's something not so good, I'll just take it on. But there is a distinction to be made. Discernment is something very important, because that's something that has enabled me to sift through the thoughts and feelings and especially and identifying the things that aren't mine, that can feel harsh and intense at times. And then through my own practices, come back to myself. And at times it requires tapping into those tools. It could be like material, or even just going to a physical place, or even doing a specific activity. They say like I hear the term decompress. When I think about exercise. So like if I'm like stressed out, I'll exercise, I'll go to the gym, or I'll ride my bicycle, and that helps me to decompress. And when I say that, I think about like it's my way of being able to release all those things in my mind and what I'm feeling, and come back home here in the present into my physical body, which people have to refer to as grounding myself in the present. And the thing with peace, it's important to note, is that it's not a destination. As I mentioned before, it's a state of being. And where I'm at in my life is getting into this dance as I'm moving through my situations. How can I move through my life situations and in my opportunities and in my relationships with that sense of peace within myself? How can I stay in that? Because I know it's there in myself. And if you're listening to this, it's there within you too. Peace. It's not something elusive, but rather, what are the things obstructing me from peace within? And I know oftentimes it can be stimulated by the things in the outer, other people, along with their actions and thoughts, their behavior, perhaps towards me or towards other people. It could be certain situations that I'm like observing. All these things can stimulate something within me. But that peace is still there. And for me, I remember I just finished a week-long course here. I've been here just a week so far at summer camp here. And one of the big takeaways that's coming up is this phrase, empowered to choose. Empowered to choose. And to me, that's important because at times it really is a matter of choosing peace over suffering. But the kicker in all this for me is undoing the habits, unlearning the habits and building on new habits. And not to mention trying to be consistent with the new habits that are not just necessarily exclusive to what I'm doing with my physical body, but just also like the habits in my thoughts and what I'm feeling. And just being able to work with all that so that I can just allow things to just flow through. Rather than sitting in the muck, feeling like crap. Now that isn't to say not to feel them. Make no mistake. It's just learning to let that all work through me, process it, and then do something about it. So it's like, okay, have these feelings, embrace them, sit with them. And being alert to like, okay, I've sit with this long enough, and that requires discernment. Then the last final piece is, okay, action. What do I need to do? And that may require a plan. That may require doing some meditating. And in which case, this is where I invite my spiritual helpers for some insights. Okay, what could I do here in this situation? And all of this is a practice. So, what are some of the ways that you can cultivate more peace within yourself? What are some things that are keeping you from feeling peaceful within? As a matter of fact, what are some things that make you feel the opposite? Unease, unsettled, the opposite of peace, turmoil, suffering. Write those down. And it may help to actually write them down as a way to detach from all that. But I think it would be most wise to do it in a state where one is relaxed. I know for me, I have the habit of wanting to trying to figure it out all out and meditate and regroup when I'm having a lot of turmoil, when I'm under pressure and I'm kind of going through sorts of emotions and just I'm in a storm. But instead is to wait for it to pass. Wait for it to pass. And that's the thing with that, is that even though the storms, and this is why it's the ebbs and flows, the moments will come, but then if I can relax into it, and that's a key right there, at least for me, if I can relax into the tension that starts to rise when I think about a situation or a person, or perhaps for yourself, it could be thinking about going to work the next day or going to something for the sake of responsibility or something, right? Because, life and adulting and stuff. But I would definitely encourage taking that step back and reflecting on all this, because to me, this has been a very powerful step in being able to stay more in that space of peace. And I'll mention again, it's not about not feeling all the other stuff, the other human aspects. It's to embrace them, allow them in, but then get to a point where, okay, now I need to get back into my own flow now and keep going. And there may be some moments when some emotions and something stimulates, all that points to me is like a clue within myself of what needs my attention, what needs to be resolved in a way, spiritually. Otherwise, I might still get stimulated and I might attract situations where I get stimulated again and again and again. And if you find yourself in that situation, that's where I would highly encourage you to take some time for yourself and journal on that. Why is that the case? And if you really want to, and if you find that you're lacking tools to be able to do all of that, as always, I share resources in the show notes in each episode. And I invite you to check out this one as well. Check out the resources here that can help. So, peace. Peace be with you. I remember just thinking about that when growing up Catholic, going to church and whatnot. But really, that's like the such a precious thing that for me, I'm working on making that a priority. And if something is disrupting my peace, I need to be very sincere and concerned about that and do whatever it takes to address it. And that's another component as well, too, to experience more peace. And I find that the more I've been doing this, doing the work within myself to feel more peace inside more often, I've had people share with me how my presence has made them feel calming. And that to me is a testament that, when you work from within and you address the stuff and you using tools, whatever works, whatever meditation, reflections helps you to go within and be able to identify the things that are keeping you from being at ease and in peace, tapping into your peace within. When you work on that and you do that, you can be rest assured that in your environments with your loved ones, friends, colleagues, whomever, that peace can spread like a ripple effect. I mean, think about it. I mean, when you look at the state of, at least when I look at the state of the U.S. and our society and all this turmoil, that thing can spread all over the place like wildfire, like it's contagious. But so is peace and understanding and clarity, sincerity. Like, those are some examples that I believe that can really energetically communicates from my beingness. Another way I kind of phrase it is like what I communicate from my presence, my aura, that other people, whether they are aware of it or not, will pick it up. And that's really getting into the bigger picture of peace, of its capabilities and what it can do for the collective. But it's a very subtle ripple effect. That at times I have to trust that it does its part. But I do, like I said, I appreciate it from, I've had people share with me how they feel about me, what they think about me, and yeah, this is great, you know. It's really reaffirming, and I appreciate it. And another component I'll say before I'm wrapping up this episode, to make way for peace, I have to have acceptance. And it's like, figuratively, it's like I have to be willing to let go of thoughts and ideas I may have about anything in life, relationships, myself, etc., etc. I have to be willing to just be okay with where I'm at. Even if it's like crap, but just like, you know what? I'm going through this thing like I have at times, but I'm at a place where I can kind of be detached for a moment and be like, you know what though? It's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Because like I said before, storms always pass. So they'll always pass. Peace is always within. And it takes practice. It takes practice. And I make tuning into that peace and embodying that a way of life. And I think if I can say it there, I just keep it at that, you know. It's like living from within, living peace from within, a way of life. And that kind of effect heals. And if you're listening to this, you're a healer. You have and are capable of healing other people. From that place of detachment, not wanting to change or impose, but just by simply being in your presence. This is like another component of like the power of the energy of lead by example, but also influence by example, to even expand a little on that. And so, peace I give to you, my friends. And I invite you to look inward about that and just kind of examine that of the questions I mentioned earlier. And then to add even here, you know, what are some things what would it look like if you accepted things the way they are? What would it look like? What would it feel like if you genuinely accepted yourself for where you're at right now? And just to be clear, acceptance doesn't mean just being complacent and like not doing anything. Okay, that's just it, then whatever. It's just acknowledging, for me, where I'm at this time. It's just like a very powerful acknowledgement. Like, this is where I'm at this time. Admitting it to myself, being honest with myself. And once I can do that, and I tap into that, and you know, by doing that, I'm tapping into my sincerity with myself, and I find myself being able to step into action and do something about it. For those things that don't need to be settled for. And so I'll leave it here for my friend. And I hope you got something out of this. And if you made it to this part of the episode, thank you so much. I appreciate you. I love you. And so this has been another episode of the Spiritual Engineer Podcast. I'm your host, Alvin Cepeda, signing out. And as always, take care, my dear friend.